I've been thinking very much about what was the first Christians look like. So I think they look very different to how we look today. I think we've got a lot of things have changed over the last 1900 years. And obviously we're in a different culture now than that they were in. But I think he sent people out to make disciples, make apprentices, if you like, of his, teaching them what he's commanded them. Well, what did he command them? He commanded them to seek first that kingdom of heaven, which is within, and seek his righteousness and not to try and be self-righteous. Told us to love God with everything, love each other as we want them to love us, and actually added a new commandment that we should love people as he has loved us. He told us to have the faith of Christ, which means, we believe in him, but more than that, it means that we rest in the fact that he has faith in us. And he talked about building his called out people on this sense of identity. So I think that when those first 12, 120, 3,000, 5,000, as it grew rapidly in and around Jerusalem in those first few months, there was a community of people that were loving each other, not just in a human way that was nice, but actually in that self-emptying love that Christ showed them how to do by dying for them. That's what they saw as love. That was the standard for them. And they were incredibly sacrificial. Their society back then was, the villages were very tiny, the cities were very crowded and crammed. It wasn't all city planning like it is now. So I don't know if you've seen programs like Rome and some of the other stuff from that sort of shows back then, but they all lived right on top of each other. There was no privacy. So if you had this little community of people loving one another, really believing in themselves because they knew their God believed in them. Remember, all the others believed in pagan gods, and all the pagan gods, and even the Jewish version of God, all needed sacrifice, and they might make things better for you. Here they had a God who had sacrificed himself and was saying, right, go for it, guys, you're all right. And they were able to live in this incredible freedom, that they didn't have to live under the cloud of trying to be something. They knew that they were sons of God themselves. They knew that they were brothers with Christ Jesus. And so the little community, it'd be interesting to try and imagine what they might have been like. That's before you go away with the healings and the prayer times and just they were devoted, it says in Acts, they were devoted to the apostles' teaching. It doesn't mean they were listening to teaching cassettes or they were going to conferences. It just means that they'll be chatting about the sort of things the apostles were telling them about, which would have been directly what Jesus had told them. They were dedicated to fellowship, just hanging out together, supporting one another, being a community together. They were dedicated to breaking bread together, which we sometimes translate as communion, but that didn't exist back then like it does now. Breaking bread was just their lunch. They would have just sat together and had fellowship and broken bread. They were devoted to prayers of all sorts. There'd have been thanksgiving, they'd have been asking, praying for one another on a daily basis in these tiny little communities. I think it would have been quite an exciting thing to be a part of. And people would have looked in on that and would have like, wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. The end of Luke's gospel, there's actually a little great commission there where he's saying, you go out and forgive people, and if you forgive them, they're forgiven. This has been taken on by Catholic priests where they can, you read out this prayer of forgiveness and the Catholic priest says, you are now forgiven, and the Anglican priests do it as well. But actually it was just anyone could just go and just make sure people are forgiven. Yeah, you've ballsed it up and you've messed it up and you've been a pain to me, but I forgive you. What an upside down world that must have been in these tight-knit city communities, in these little villages where these people were living differently. They were living a quality of life that was different, that was free from the curse of living under the false gods. That was interesting. Just have a think about it. Try and put yourself in that position. Try and put how you are now as a Christian into that, how they would have been, and how would you have fitted in? Interesting, have a think. Anyway, if that was helpful, please share, let other people hear these messages, and like them, comment on them. I appreciate it. See ya.